90% of the world's population occupies only 30% of the land area.
Hmm.
I want you to just sit with that visual for a moment. Picture the entire globe spinning in front of you.
Right.
Now picture almost every human being, every bustling city you've ever heard of, every traffic jam, every skyscraper, all squeezed into less than a third of that space.
It is a claustrophobic thought, isn't it? It really challenges our perception of the planet as this vast open space.
It really does. It means the other 70% of our planet's land is essentially, well, it's a ghost town. It's sparsely populated or completely uninhabited.
Vast, empty, and silent.
Exactly.
And that isn't just a piece of trivia, something you'd find on the back of a cereal box or use to win a pub quiz.
No, not at all.
That single statistic, that uneven distribution of people, based on the land itself, that is the fundamental bedrock of human geography.
The bedrock, that's the word.
It explains everything from where we draw our borders to where we fight our wars. And crucially for our listeners, it explains the economic disparities between regions.
Oh, precisely. And for our listeners today, specifically the aspirants tuning in, this statistic is our launch pad. We are diving into NCERT Class 8 Geography, Chapter 2.
And it has a bit of a mouthful for a title.
It does. Land, soil, water, natural vegetation, and wildlife resources. But before we start mapping this whole terrain, I have a humble request.
A very important one.
We are putting a massive amount of effort into these deep dives. I mean, we aren't just reading the book to you. We are mapping these foundational texts to the actual brutal demands of the exam.
Yeah, the real thing.
So we are asking you to please subscribe to the Simplified UPSC by PPP YouTube channel. It helps us improve retention. It tells the algorithm to go find other serious learners just like you. And frankly, it just keeps the ship sailing.
And look, we know that this kind of high-quality analysis takes resources. If you are capable, and if you find real value in this deep extraction of knowledge, please consider supporting us on Patreon.
Your support literally keeps this high-utility content coming.
It really does. And we want to give a massive shout-out right now to all of our current supporters. You folks are the engine room. You are the reason we can do this.
Absolutely. We see you, and we appreciate you more than you know. Also, engage with us, like the video, and leave a valuable comment.
Yeah, don't just say nice video.
Exactly. Let us know what clicked for you. Let us know which concepts suddenly made sense because of this discussion. And for the resources, we know you need the notes. Free notes with practice previous year questions, or PYQs, are available right now on our public Telegram channel.
But for those who want the full arsenal, and I mean everything, the Simplified UPSC by PPP private Telegram library is where you want to be.
What's in there?
It has all the videos in this series, all the organized premium notes, detailed breakdowns, extra PYQs, and model mains answers. Everything in one place.
And how do you get in?
You just need to DM us on the public Telegram channel to join that private library.
Okay, housekeeping done. Let's get to the mission. We are tackling Chapter 2.
It sounds like a basic checklist of nature, doesn't it? Land, soil, water. But this chapter is deceptively powerful.
And our approach today is strategic. We are not just summarizing.
Not at all. We are mapping these concepts directly to UPSC, previous year questions ranging from 2013 all the way up to 2025.
We want to transform what looks like a simple reading assignment into high-yield exam preparation. So let's go back to that 90-30 rule. 90% of people on 30% of the land. Why is the rest of the land so lonely? What is it about that 70% that pushes us away?
Well, it really comes down to the ruggedness of the topography and the harshness of the climate. The NCERT text is very clear on this, but let's break down the why.
Okay.
It lists things like steep slopes, areas prone to waterlogging, dense forests, and of course, deserts. These are the culprits.
So places that are just hard to live in.
Exactly. Humans, both biologically and socially, we are path of least resistance creatures.
Right.
We gravitate toward river valleys and plains.
Because life is just easier there. You can farm, you can build, you can move things around.
Precisely. The two big ones, agriculture and construction. But let's connect this to the exam, because the UPSC loves to ask why.
They always do.
If you look at 2013 GS1Q21, the commission asked, major hot deserts in the northern hemisphere are located between 20-30-degree north latitudes and on the western side of the continents.
Why?
Oh, I see the connection immediately. So the NCERT tells you that deserts are sparsely populated. That's the basic fact.
Right.
But the UPSC assumes you already know that and asks why the deserts are located where they are in the first place.
You've got it. The textbook establishes the what, that deserts are hostile to that 90% of the population, but the exam demands the climatological mechanism behind it.
So it's about high-pressure belts and wind patterns. Exactly. The question links to the subtropical high-pressure belt, where the air descends and it warms up, which stops clouds from forming. And it also links to the offshore trade winds that literally blow moisture away from the land. But the foundational knowledge, the starting point, is right here in Chapter 2.
You have to understand the characteristics of that uninhabited 70% of land to even begin to answer why it exists geographically.
That's it.
That brings us to the next logical concept, which is land use. The text gives a broad list: agriculture, forestry, mining, building houses, roads, setting up industries. Seems pretty simple.
It seems simple, but there's a categorization here that is absolutely vital for analysis.
Which is?
It distinguishes between two sets of factors that determine this use. First, you have the physical factors. That's topography, soil, climate, minerals, and water.
So that's what nature deals you. That's your hand of cards.
A perfect analogy.
Yeah.
But then you have the human factors. Yeah. Population and technology. And that's how you play the hand you're dealt.
Technology is a massive variable here, isn't it? I mean, you might have minerals in the ground, a physical factor, but without the technology to get them out or the population density to even need them.
The land use doesn't change to mining. It just stays as wasteland or forest on the map.
Right.
And this interplay, this dance between the physical and human factors, is where we see the evolution of civilization. It's not static. Let's look at 2014 GS1 Q1.
Okay, what was that one?
The question was, to what extent has the urban planning and culture of the Indus Valley civilization provided inputs to the present-day urbanization? Discuss.
Yeah, hold on. That's classically categorized as a history question, or maybe art and culture. You're saying it's geography.
I'm saying it's rooted in geography and land use. Think about it.
Yeah.
The Indus Valley civilization was a masterclass in land use. They utilized the river valley. That's the physical factor, right? Fertile soil and water.
Of course.
But they applied advanced urban planning, these incredible drainage systems, grid layouts. That is the human factor. Specifically, its technology and population organization.
So the question is asking how those ancient land use decisions influence our current land use patterns in modern cities.
It's a direct line from this very chapter to that question. You cannot separate history from the land it happened on.
That is a fascinating way to look at it. It really shows that you can't silo these subjects. Geography bleeds into history, which bleeds into sociology.
They're all interconnected.
And speaking of sociology, let's look at the classification of land based on ownership. The text mentions private land versus community land.
This is a critical distinction, especially for the Indian context. Private land is owned by individuals. Your plot of land, my house. Simple enough.
Right.
But community land is owned by the community for common uses, things like collecting fodder, fruits, nuts, or medicinal herbs. The text gives them a specific name: common property resources, or CPRs.
CPRs, that term comes up constantly in rural economy papers. I've seen it everywhere.
It does, because in rural sociology and economy questions, the health of CPRs is a vital indicator of equity in a society.
How so?
Well, think about it. If a village loses its community grazing land to some industrial encroachment, who really loses out?
Not the rich farmer.
The rich farmer probably has his own private pasture. It's the landless laborer, the poorest sections of society who suffer the most. They rely on those nuts, fruits, and fodder from that common land.
So when you read community land in a Class 8 textbook, you shouldn't just think park. You should be thinking social justice in GS Paper 2.
Precisely. It's a lifeline resource. And unfortunately, the text mentions that this very land is under severe threat. We are seeing land degradation, landslides, soil erosion, and desertification.
Driven largely by the expansion of agriculture and construction. It sounds like we were pushing into that hostile 70% of land we talked about earlier, and, well, the land is fighting back.
It is. The text outlines some conservation methods, things like afforestation, land reclamation, and this is key, the regulated use of chemical pesticides and fertilizers.
It also mentions checks on overgrazing.
Which brings us right back to the management of those common property resources we just discussed.
Right.
But I want to link this to a question about governance. It might seem like a stretch, but bear with me. 2016 GS2 asked about the effectiveness of the government system at various levels and people's participation.
Okay, so how does a governance question connect to land degradation?
Think about the solutions the NCERT proposes. Regulated use of chemical pesticides. Who does the regulating?
The government.
Checks on overgrazing. Who enforces that? Often it's local panchayats or community groups, right?
People's participation.
Exactly. The NCERT also mentions something called the National Innovation Foundation, or NIF, in the context of conservation and technology. This was actually tested directly in 2015 CSPQ-10.
Right, I remember that one. It asked about the NIF's role.
And its role is to help identify grassroots technologies. Maybe it's a farmer's unique method for preventing soil erosion, and then scale it up. So you see, land conservation isn't just about planting trees. It's about the intersection of government policy from GS2, scientific innovation from GS3, and community action.
It's a complex web. Everything is connected. Let's dig a little deeper now, literally. Let's talk about soil. The text calls it the thin layer of grainy substance covering the surface of the earth.
It's a lovely, almost poetic definition, isn't it? The skin of the earth. And there's a specific formula provided that you should remember. Soil equals organic matter plus minerals plus weathered rocks.
And weathering is the process that makes it all happen. Breaking up rocks through temperature changes, frost, plants, animals, and even us humans. It's basically nature's slow-motion rock crusher.
It is. But the real meat of this section, the part that aspirants need to memorize and really understand, is the factors of soil formation. I call them the FAB5.
With FAB5, okay, I'm ready. Walk us through them.
Number one is parent rock. This is the DNA of the soil. It determines the color, the texture, the chemical properties, the mineral content, and the permeability.
So the source material dictates the final product.
Absolutely. If your parent rock is the salt, you get black soil. Simple as that.
Yeah.
If it's granite with a lot of iron, you get red soil.
Okay, that's number one, parent rock. What's number two?
Number two is climate, specifically temperature and rainfall. These drive the rate of weathering.
The speed at which it happens.
Yes. High heat and high moisture mean faster chemical reactions, so soil forms much faster. In the tundra, it takes forever. Climate also dictates humus formation, the organic component.
Got it. Parent rock, climate. Number three.
Number three is relief, which is another word for topography, altitude, and slope. This determines the accumulation of soil.
Accumulation.
Think about gravity. If you are on a very steep slope, the weathered rock just slides down, right? The soil stays thin. If you are on a flat plain, the soil sits there and it thickens over centuries.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, number four.
Number four is flora, fauna, and microorganisms, the living stuff. These affect the rate of humus formation. We're talking about earthworms churning the earth, roots breaking apart rocks, bacteria fixing nitrogen from the air.
The biological engine.
That's it. And the final ingredient, the fifth one.
It has to be time.
Time, the great equalizer. Time determines the thickness of the soil profile. It takes hundreds of years to make just 1 centimeter of soil. It is a very, very slow cooking process.
Hundreds of years for 1 centimeter. Wow. Now, how does this theoretical FAB5 apply to the exam? Where's the PYQ connection?
Okay, let's look at 2025 GS1 Q22. This is a brilliant question. It asks, why did the Green Revolution in India virtually bypass the eastern region despite fertile soil and good availability of water?
Oh, that's a great connection, because if you look at the eastern region, places like West Bengal, Bihar, they check all the boxes for the FAB5.
They absolutely do.
They have excellent parent rock from all those alluvial deposits. They have the climate with plenty of rain. The soil is, by definition, fertile.
Exactly. According to the geography textbook, the soil there should be gold. And it is. But the Green Revolution didn't take off there like it did in Punjab or Haryana.
So what does that tell us?
It tells us that while the soil formation factors, the physical factors, are necessary, they are not sufficient for agricultural success.
Ah, you need the human factors, too.
You need the human factors. You need infrastructure, investment, government policy, land consolidation. The UPSC is testing if you can look at a region with perfect Class 8 geography conditions and explain why it still failed economically in that specific context.
That is a deep insight. It prevents you from being a geographical determinist. It's not just about having good dirt.
It never is. But speaking of dirt, we do need to keep it on the ground. Soil degradation is a huge focus in the text.
And this next section is just packed with specific terminology. It's a list of conservation techniques, and I know for a fact these show up in prelims.
This list is a goldmine. It's practically a cheat sheet for a few marks. In 2014 CSP Q42, the question asked, in India, the problem of soil erosion is associated with which of the following? 1. Terrace cultivation. 2. Deforestation. 3. Tropical climate.
Okay, let's break that down right now using the text.
The text explicitly, I mean word for word, lists terrace farming as a conservation method. It says, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, broad flat steps or terraces are made on the steep slopes. They reduce surface runoff and soil erosion.
So if the question asks, what causes erosion, terrace cultivation is definitely not the answer.
It's the opposite of the answer.
It's the cure, not the disease.
Precisely. That specific knowledge from this one chapter allows you to eliminate that option immediately. It changes the physics of the slope from a slide into a staircase.
I love that. Let's run through the other techniques mentioned. We need to define these clearly for everyone listening. First up, mulching.
Okay, mulching. This is simply covering the bare ground between plants with a layer of organic matter like straw. It helps retain soil moisture. Think of it like a blanket for the soil.
Stops the sun from baking the moisture right out.
Exactly.
Next, contour barriers.
This is using stones, grass, or even just soil to build little barriers along the contours of a hill. Trenches are then made in front of the barriers to collect water. It's all about stopping the water from gaining speed. Speed is the enemy of soil conservation.
Got it. Then we have rock dams.
Simple physics again.
Yeah.
You pile rocks in a gully to slow down the water flow. It prevents that gully from getting deeper and wider and eating away more land. It's a speed bump for water.
Effective. And intercropping.
This is clever. You grow different crops in alternate rows. The key is that they are harvested at different times, which means the soil is never left completely bare to be washed away by the rain.
So if one crop is harvested, the other is still there, its roots still holding the soil together.
You've got it. It's teamwork between plants.
Okay, two more. Contour plowing.
This is similar to the barriers we talked about, but it involves the plowing itself. You plow parallel to the contours of a hill slope. This creates a natural barrier for water. Instead of water rushing straight down the furrows,
It gets trapped in the ridges.
and it seeps in.
Brilliant. And finally, shelter belts.
This is crucial for coastal and dry regions. It's just planting rows of trees to check the wind movement. It protects the soil cover from being literally blown away.
I want to pause on shelter belts for a second. This connects to a very interesting mains question. 2015 GS1 Q15. Mumbai, Delhi, and Kolkata are the three megacities of the country, but the air pollution is much more serious problem in Delhi as compared to the other two. Why is this so?
This is a beautiful synthesis. Shelter belts are about using vegetations to block or manage wind, right?
Right.
In the case of Delhi versus the coastal cities, the answer is geography. Mumbai and Kolkata have coastal breezes, that's natural air movement that disperses pollution. Delhi is landlocked, doesn't have that natural cleaning mechanism.
So understanding how wind interacts with the land, which is the core principle behind shelter belts, helps you understand urban pollution dynamics.
Exactly. Geography explains why Delhi chokes while Mumbai breathes, relatively speaking. It's all about wind movement and the location of the land. The same wind that erodes the soil in a desert is the wind that cleans the air in Mumbai.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, moving from land to the stuff that covers 70% of the planet but is somehow still incredibly scarce. Water.
Ah, the water planet. The text gives us the breakdown, and it's startling every time you hear it. Earth is 3/4 water.
But the oceans are saline, not fit for human consumption.
So we look at fresh water, which is only 2.7%, a tiny fraction.
But wait, it gets worse. You can't even use all of that. Nearly 70% of that tiny 2.7% is locked up in ice sheets in Antarctica and Greenland.
It's frozen assets. You can't spend it.
Which leaves a tiny, tiny fraction, only 1% of fresh water is actually available for human use. That's the brown water, the rivers, the lakes, and the water vapor.
And the scarcity, this very fact, is the setup for 2015 GS1 Q16. India is well endowed with freshwater resources. Critically examine why it still suffers.
This is the classic paradox of plenty.
It is. The NCERT text highlights that water shortages are often due to variation in seasonal or annual precipitation, or, and this is the big one, scarcity is caused by overexploitation and contamination.
So the answer to that 2015 question is right there in the Class 8 chapter. We have the resources. That 1% is actually a lot in terms of volume.
But we have distribution issues. The monsoon is seasonal, and we have massive management issues. We pollute what we have.
And on pollution, the text mentions discharge of untreated or partially treated sewage, agricultural chemicals, and industrial effluents as the major contaminants. It specifically calls out nitrates, metals, and pesticides.
And that links directly to 2015 CSP Q11. The question was about the impact of chemical fertilizers on the environment.
Right.
Specifically, the leaching of nitrate into the groundwater. The question asked about the impacts of indiscriminate fertilizer use. And while there are other effects, the big environmental one is nitrate leaching.
Which leads to health issues like blue baby syndrome, so it makes the water available in terms of volume, but not potable in terms of health.
Exactly. It reduces that precious 1% even further. We are, quite literally, poisoning our own well.
So what are the conservation methods? The text lists a few. Let's start with forest and other vegetation cover.
This connects right back to soil conservation. Vegetation slows the surface runoff. It gives the water time to seep into the ground and replenish the water table. It's like a giant sponge.
And if you cut the forest deforestation, the water just runs off into the ocean.
And you lose the water and you lose the soil. It's a double whammy.
Okay, next one. Water harvesting.
This is a big one. The text has one of those do you know boxes, which are my favorite part of the inserts.
They're always gold.
It says, rainwater harvesting is the process of collecting rainwater from rooftops. On an average, one spell of rain for 2 hours is enough to save 8,000 liters of water.
8,000 liters. In 2 hours. From one roof. That's an incredible stat to quote in an essay on water conservation.
It is. It moves the discussion from these abstract save water slogans to concrete math. It makes the solution tangible. If every house did that, the water crisis would look very, very different.
Absolutely. The text also talks about irrigation efficiency. It says canals should be properly lined to minimize seepage.
We lose so much water just transporting it from the dam to the field. But in the fields themselves, the text distinguishes between sprinklers and drip irrigation.
What's the key difference there for an aspirant to note?
Sprinklers are effective, but in very dry regions with high rates of evaporation, you don't want to be throwing water up into the air where it will just vanish.
Right.
That's where you need drip or trickle irrigation. You feed the water directly to the roots of the plants, drop by drop. Zero waste. It's maximum efficiency.
Again, it's technology adapting to the physical factors of the land.
Precisely. It always comes back to that.
Let's move to our final resource group for this deep dive, natural vegetation and wildlife.
We start with the definition of the biosphere. It's that narrow zone of contact between the lithosphere, the land, the hydrosphere, the water, and the atmosphere, the air. Life fully exists in this thin, fragile contact zone.
And within this biosphere, we have the ecosystem, which the book calls a life-supporting system where living beings are interdependent.
And the services provided by this ecosystem are vast.
Mm-hmm.
We often just think of wood from a forest. But the text lists timber, shelter, oxygen, protecting soil, storage of groundwater, fruits, latex, turpentine oil, gum, medicinal plants. It's the entire economy of nature.
It really is. Now let's talk about the distribution of this vegetation. Why do we have these huge jungles in Brazil, but only shrubs in Rajasthan?
It primarily depends on two main variables, temperature and moisture.
Okay, so break down the formula for us.
Heavy rainfall plus heat gives us huge trees. We call those forests. As the moisture decreases, the tree size and density decline. So moderate rainfall gives us grasslands, short, stunted trees, and a lot of grass.
And in dry areas, like you mentioned?
You get thorny shrubs and scrubs. And the text notes a specific adaptation here that is evolutionary genius.
What's that?
The plants have deep roots to find whatever water there is, and their leaves have thorny or waxy surfaces. This is to reduce the loss of moisture through transpiration. They're built to hoard water.
They're survivalists. And finally, in the cold polar regions where it's too cold for trees.
That's where you get tundra vegetation, mosses, and lichens. The bare minimum of life clinging on.
I want to connect this ecosystem discussion to a prelims question. 2019 CSP Q40. It was about wetlands and the Ramsar Convention.
Right. That question asked about the Ramsar Convention's mandate and also the regulatory framework in India, the Wetlands Conservation and Management Rules.
Why is this relevant to a Class 8 chapter?
Because Class 8 teaches you the value of these biomes. It explains that wetlands and lakes save the precious resource from depletion. They act as the kidneys of the landscape, filtering water and recharging groundwater.
So you need to know the why before you learn the what.
Exactly. The Ramsar Convention is the international legal framework to protect what the NCERT describes as a critical resource. You can't understand the importance of the treaty if you don't first understand the function of the ecosystem.
Speaking of functional ecosystems, there's a very specific and quite sad mention in the text of the loss of rainforest in Great Nicobar after tsunami. There's a picture of it.
That image is haunting. And it connects directly to a very recent question, 2025 GS1Q4. How are climate change and sea level rise affecting the very existence of many island nations? Discuss with examples.
Wow, so the answer provides a concrete, real-world example right there. The tsunami is a sudden, catastrophic event, but sea level rise is just a slow-motion tsunami.
It's exactly that. The loss of the rainforest in Nicobar shows you what happens when salt water invades fresh land. The vegetation dies, the soil becomes saline, the island literally shrinks. That is the future of many island nations under climate change.
And of course, when the vegetation dies, the wildlife follows. The text lists animals at risk. Tiger, lion, elephant, deer, black buck, crocodile, rhinoceros, snow leopard, ostrich, peacock. A whole list.
And it mentions poaching as a major threat. The illegal trade of hides, skins, nails, teeth, horns, feathers.
Which leads us directly to the protection measures: national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, and a very specific international agreement, CITES.
The Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora.
That is a mouthful.
It is, but you absolutely need to know it. 2015 CSP Q12 asked specifically about the function of IUCN versus CITES.
And the question was to distinguish between them.
Correct. The NCERT text clarifies CITES perfectly. It says, and I quote, "An international agreement between governments. It lists several species of animals and birds in which trade is prohibited."
So CITES is all about being legally binding on the governments that sign it.
Well, it's an agreement between governments. The key distinction the 2015 PYQ was looking for is that CITES is a treaty focused on trade, whereas the IUCN is the organization that provides the scientific data, like the famous Red List. The NCERT gives you the core function of CITES clearly. It's about prohibiting trade to ensure survival.
Conservation of plants and animals is an ethical duty of every citizen. That's a direct quote from the book.
And that's a heavy statement. It moves this discussion from geography right into the realm of ethics.
It does. We've covered land, soil, water, vegetation. But before we wrap up, I want to do a quick synthesis module. We need to connect the dots across the entire chapter.
Let's do it. Geography isn't a list of facts. It's a dynamic system.
Okay, first connection, disaster management. The text mentions Phelan, the cyclone that hit the east coast of India.
Yes. And in 2013 GS1 Q3, the UPSC asked, "The recent cyclone on east coast of India was called Phelan. How were the tropical cyclones named across the world?"
It's pretty interesting that the textbook mentions the specific cyclone that then appeared in the exam.
It shows that the NCERTs are often updated, or at least reference the major events that define our contemporary geography. Geography isn't static. It's not just a map. It's dynamic events like Phelan or the tsunami in Nicobar. The study of land and water is effectively the study of disaster management.
You can't prepare for disasters if you don't know the terrain.
You can't.
Okay, another connection, urbanization. The text discusses megacities and the immense pressure on land use.
We touched on this with the pollution question, but let's look at 2013 GS1 Q20A. Bring out the causes for the formation of heat islands in the urban habitat of the world.
Urban heat islands. That's when the city is significantly hotter than the surrounding countryside.
Exactly. And why does that happen? It goes right back to the concepts in Chapter 2, land use. When you replace natural vegetation, which cools the air through transpiration, with concrete and asphalt, which absorb and radiate heat, you fundamentally change the microclimate.
So concrete, which is a building material, land, used traps heat.
And the lack of surface water, another resource from this chapter, means there's less evaporation to cool the city down. The human factors of land use that we talked about at the very beginning of this deep dive are the direct cause of the urban heat island effect. We have literally paved over the natural cooling mechanisms of the Earth.
It really does all connect. It's incredible. We've traveled from the soil under our feet to the international treaties governing trade, all while solving actual UPSC questions from the last decade.
It's a journey. And it shows that the basics are not easy. They are foundational. If your foundation is weak, you can't build the complex answers required for the mains exam. You can't write a good essay on climate change if you don't understand the albedo effect of asphalt versus a forest.
I want to leave our listeners with a final provocative thought. We mentioned the text says, conservation of plants and animals is an ethical duty of every citizen.
Right. It places the burden squarely on the individual.
But 2025 GS1 Q10 asks, do you think that globalization results in only an aggressive consumer culture? Justify your answer.
That is the central conflict of our times, isn't it?
It is. On one hand, we have this ethical duty to conserve, taught to us in Class 8. On the other hand, we have the aggressive consumer culture driven by globalization, which demands more land for industries, more mining for our gadgets, more water for fast fashion.
So the question for the aspirant, and really for every citizen is, how do you balance that? How do you write an answer that acknowledges the drive for economic development, which by necessity uses land and water, while also upholding that ethical duty to the biosphere?
That is the challenge, and that is what a civil servant has to navigate every single day. You might have to sign the order to build the road, but you also have to protect the forest it's going through.
Beautifully put. It's about finding that difficult, necessary middle path.
All right, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. A quick reminder, if this helped you connect the dots, please subscribe to Simplified UPSC by PPP on YouTube. It really, really helps us out.
If you can, please consider supporting us on Patreon. It allows us to keep digging through these archives to bring you these kinds of insights.
And don't forget the resources. Free notes are on the public Telegram channel. But if you want the premium notes with the detailed breakdowns, extra PYQs, and the model mains answers, you need to get into the private library. Just DM us on the public channel to join.
Like, comment, share. Let's keep this community of serious learners growing.
Next time, we are moving on to the next chapter. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. Until then, keep learning.
And stay curious.